Hello, welcome back to the InsTech Podcast in a whole new year. Happy New Year, everyone. And to celebrate, this week, Robin is joined by a C-suite panel tackling one of the biggest questions facing insurance right now. Where is the industry today when it comes to Agentic AI? Recorded at InsTech's Rise of the Agents event, hosted in collaboration with AI Risk, this conversation brings together senior leaders who are right at the sharp end of decision-making, balancing enormous promise with very real uncertainty. Robin is joined by Dr. Thomas Kunt, member of the executive board at HDI Global, Vincent de Ponto, Group Head of Software and AI Engineering at AXA, and Ed Ackerman, Chief Customer Officer at Qover. Three very different perspectives from global carriers to fast-moving insurtechs. Together they explore whether Agentic AI is truly a game changer or just the latest overhyped wave, how bold insurers should really be, and what it means to build a business case when the technology is moving faster than governance, talent, and even trust. Pour yourself a coffee, settle into the first episode of 2026, and enjoy the conversation, including one surprisingly personal use case you won't want to miss.
Right, Ed. Hello, Ed Ackerman, who's the Chief Customer Officer at Qover from Belgium. And then in from Germany, we've got Dr. Thomas Kunt, who's the member of the Executive Board, HDI Global, and down the far end, Vincent de Ponto, who's the Group Head of Software and Artificial Intelligence Engineering at AXA. The idea for this came from a discussion I had with Thomas, which is because he made me realize what an incredibly difficult job it is to be C-suite with responsibility for AI in a world where everybody knows its vast potential, but it's still nascent. People don't know who the winners and the losers are going to be. And I thought it would be fascinating to get a group of people together and say, what's it like to do that job? What goes through your mind? What issues do you face? Which is what we're going to talk about in the next half an hour. So I'm going to start with you. You've got that big role there at HDI. You've got a board that's prepared to invest. You've been tracking the space. You really believe in it. Where does that leave you? What's your thinking? What are you doing day to day?
So I liked also Simon's presentation because I think the two options he framed are spot on. It's a great opportunity to be CIO in a period of time of so many changes happening on the tech side, but it's also very scary. Because the older ones here in the room probably know still blockchain coming and going. Well, it's not gone, but right, the IoT, you have metaverse. And now you sit there and you say, hey, of course, you have a lot of people saying, hey, go all in. This is the thing. Right? But you also know you have your career risk. If you go in all in too early, then 5 years back, in hindsight, everybody will say, hey, how could they invest $3 million amounts into that trend? It was totally clear it's not going to work out. So I think that's just reality of the job, right? I mean, when do you decide, hey, this is real and you now need to double down? And when are you going to be the guy who actually wasted a ton of money and it didn't come to fruition? And I think that's part of the reality, and I think there's ways to deal with it. Just to be clear on this trend, we are going pretty much all in a measured way, right? And I'll talk a little bit about that later on. So I'm not a skeptic that this isn't real, but of course those are the realities if you sit in the boardroom. And it's also my job to ask for money. I mean, because that's often a lot of peers say, oh, well, I didn't get the money. But I think it's also our job to say, hey, dear board, this is real. I need the investment. And hey, if you get a no, then you can live with it. But I think it's our job to at least try. But it's scary. It's a red pill, blue pill type of decision.
I don't envy you. It's great to be on the outside advising everybody else what to do. It's the same kind of question to you. I mean, you've got responsibility for AI at a massive insurer. You must be doing a pretty good job. Otherwise, you wouldn't be top of the benchmark. But do you face the same issues as Thomas in the sense of challenge versus opportunity?
Yes, definitely. We are living in the super nice period. A lot of changes, a lot of challenges. And we have the chance, I would say at AXA, I would say all the management is behind. So meaning that it's a company transformation which is pushed by the top management. So we have the chance to have all this sponsorship, all this support to transform. But behind there is a lot of expectation. And that's where I would say the two changes are coming. The first one is it's pretty new. So it's an emerging technology. today we have many exploration which are live. So, but it's still, I would say, emerging. So we are still at the beginning, even if the level of expectation is very high. So we have to deal with that. And a second, I would say, for a tech profile, a second challenge is everything works very well if you have access to all the data, all the services, meaning that is if everything is well connected. And we all know that part of our IT systems are accessible. You can get all the data, but not all of them yet. So we have a lot of investment to prepare and to be ready for all this agentic journey we have in front of us.
Ed, for you, you're building solutions for others. You're younger, you're more flexible, you can move quicker. How are you getting on?
I don't know how old these two are, but I think it's a bit...
No, not them. No. They're very old, no.
Probably true. No, but you're right. These companies that they represent are hundreds of years old. I think employee-wise, I looked you both up, there's 125,000 employees plus. We're about 150 biological employees for now, and hopefully a lot more in the mechanical sense very soon. The challenge is, I think for us, the great thing is when you're VC funded and backed, you are expected to invest big in this stuff. If we're not pushing the envelope, then who will? We've heard about the challenges that you face and the potential risk aversion at a major company. If we're not the opposite end of the spectrum and really pushing the envelope, then no one else will. And for us to become at Qover the embedded insurance orchestrator of choice, we need to be doing something unique, something different, something a little bit special. And so actually the opportunity is huge. The embedded insurance opportunity for us is enormous. The risk isn't the obvious one. It's not the fact that actually sometimes AI blurts out utter nonsense in an industry which requires sobering accuracy. It's actually more when we work with partners, not necessarily these two, but our more established partners, because the risk aversion is incredibly high, as it should be. Delegation of authority is really, really important and not to be sniffed at. And so we can't expect them to dive headfirst into some of the things that we want to do. We have to demonstrate the value. We have to prove the worth of the technology and go more step by step and more incremental.
One thing I've picked up, given that this agentic AI is a sort of 2025 trend, is high levels of perhaps, within small areas of organizations, but real enthusiasm. So business user adoption, people seeing point solutions that make their lives a lot easier, they leap on them, they can be deployed quite quickly. Thomas, how do you balance driving enthusiasm for adoption through your organization, which hasn't always been easy, with the need to do this in a grown-up, thought-out, properly governed sort of way?
It's, again, quite tough question. Because, if you don't know us, we are present in 21 countries, and I probably have, in each country, a startup is probably pitching every week. So if we would just say, hey, go ahead with all the ideas that are being pitched, I would quickly face technical depths that I've not seen before. And the other perspective, I think, is this is probably shadow IT on steroids. I think we will need the business to configure those solutions. That's just the way the agentic AI works. So prompting, refining some of the agents. Of course, we need the AI agent manager, as we've seen from Simon. But we will also need to find a good operating model to enable the business users much more to tweak and adjust and refine those agents while still being DORA regulated, maintaining resilience. Because if those break, how are you going to do incident management and the typical IT stuff around it? And I think there's no perfect answer yet. So balancing the two is a big stretch. I think what I'm telling my team is, hey, if we are not fast, then the reality will overtake us. So what we're working on is providing a low-code kind of citizen development platform to all the users so that they can build their small agentic workflows, just learn, experiment, while we stand up the more corporate-grade scaling platform for agentic AI. But that's all so nascent that even technology choices, you choose something today, you'll probably have to throw it away tomorrow. But that's a kind of rapid moving environment. But we're trying to set some guardrails, but also just provide solutions for the business to play around with. Maybe just last thought, it took us a while to get Copilot or our protected environment up and running for all our business users. And of course, people tried out with business data on ChatGPT and the official and the non-endorsed channels, and they were using confidential data there. I would be naive to believe that they all adhere to the policy and did not try that out. So I think we need to be much faster than the past as enterprise IT to provide solutions, because otherwise the users will find their way.
That's a good point. Vincent, same point to you. You're obviously getting good levels of adoption, but how do you get the balance right between enthusiasm and right foundations?
Yes, first of all, what is quite interesting is today the most enthusiastic people are, I would say, the businesses. So usually when we had a new technology, it was pushed by the engineers trying to sell it to the business, explaining why it's a good technology. It's a way to automate, it's a way to go faster, to be cheaper. But now the business is really pushing very hard because they've understood that here something is happening. So meaning that it's really the business who is driving, who is pushing this transformation. So on our side, of course, we work very close to the business. And what is currently happening is quite interesting because the business is asking tech profile to support them, meaning that because they've understood that they cannot instantiate or build everything alone, even if you are mentioning a low-code, no-code solution. But I would say for really the core transformation, you need to have tech profile. So here, I would say they are expecting a huge support from the engineers. On one side, it's good. And for the engineers, they cannot build, I would say, those agents without the business knowledge. So now the engineers can enter in this business field, but they cannot evaluate, they cannot really train, fine-tune the model. So it's really a new collaboration between business, super enthusiastic, and also very nice engineers, very keen to discover all the businesses and how to train, because behind there is a big technology challenge.
Ed, slightly different question for you. Where are you focusing your investment? And back to a point that Simon made excellently, given that what you build in-house, build AI, institutionalized AI over time, how do you get the balance right between what you outsource or what you advise your customers to outsource versus what they need to have in-house?
Yeah, so on the investment side, in terms of where we are as a company, as Qover, our first focus has much been the steps really that Simon spoke about. Like many industries, we thought the first major opportunity would be in customer-facing operations. We started off with a kind of crawl, walk, run approach, and the crawl was very much, okay, let's respond to emails, firstly with an agent to support customer agent or a customer facing agent, then directly to replace that customer, that human agent's reply. And then most recently, we've implemented a voice AI capability to speak directly over the phone to customers. And there we're seeing now 1 in 5 of our interactions is now met first with an AI agent. And so that's really working, that's taking off. The kind of crawl piece really has been, what can we do ourselves in-house? So there we were using a third-party tool to get ourselves going, to get moving faster, and to sidestep some of the workflow side of things. What we've been developing in-house is more of our claims solution. And this is a bunch of agents, 20 at last count, which are effectively taking on micro tasks of the claim handling journey. So, for example, one is looking out for potential signs of negligence. One is looking at name discrepancies between an invoice and what the person computes. And you put all these together with a kind of brainstorming agent, you suddenly get something almost at human accuracy, if not at. And so then we can get to sort of straight through processing capability, which really is quite powerful. And in the future, where we want to take all of this is really that humans are there to start the fire, to get the requirements going, but then we can take humans out of the loop entirely, massively scale our operations with the same number or less humans than we have on board at the moment, and turn their role much more into a quality shape and quality focus. And just to answer your point around in-house versus outsource, I think where we want to invest our time, we only have a small team, as I said, and we want to do something which really is unique and brilliant in its way. So we will build in-house those tools, those capabilities, which we think give us a natural advantage over others. And where there are lots of, let's say, horizontal tools out in the marketplace, and you can see lots of those in customer care, for instance, that's where we're very happy to adopt what's off the shelf.
Well, back to you. All these questions are difficult. I know you said they're difficult, but they're all difficult. This is particularly so. In this world where you have, as you said, startups pitching to all your businesses one a week, and you've also got lots of incumbent providers who very quickly rebadged themselves as having all this AI capability, even though they didn't have 2 years ago. How do you set about trying to work out which vendors to work with and which vendors you don't work with?
So I would highlight 3 points. I mean, the first one, and I think we've heard a lot of the elements before, is take charge of your own destiny. I think we started with building up talent that can actually evaluate tech solutions from vendors, because the pitch decks all look very similar. And normally, I keep the sales discussion short, and I'd rather talk to the product people or the architects to really understand what's under the hood, because that's very important for us to have people who can actually evaluate the third-party solutions and see, hey, how can we integrate them? How do they fit into our environment? Is that something we can easily integrate to? Because the software as a service, the pure isolated flow is always the easy part. Integrating it into your enterprise IT is typically the much harder part, and that's why I'd love to have more deeper discussions early on. Second one is, I think, experiment early and quickly. So we have stood up an innovation team that does a lot of the partnership management, because we also know as a corporate it's not easy to work with us. So we try with new partners to say, hey, here are 100 sample cases, just run your solution and give us back the results. Because I find that much more meaningful than having a lot of sales discussions. Let's really try it out, see what works, but also be very honest with us where your tech works and where you might still want to improve it together with us. Because if I start something with a partner, I want it to be successful. Because for me, it's as painful as for you if you do a POC and it fails. Because then the business users are disappointed. So we are fully aligned in wanting to make POCs successful. But that also requires a certain degree of honesty in the initial discussions. And then lastly, I think be very selective. Where do you build versus buy? And our strategy there is rather go deep and focus than to go too broad. And I also like the earlier discussions around on underwriting claims. I think we would have tendencies to say, hey, especially for the more complex flows, let's rather do that in a partnership approach to build it also on our core platforms. For all the things that are non-really differentiating, if we look at input management, these kind of capabilities, we would be very, very happy to partner. But I think having clarity on where do you actually want to partner, where do you want to buy, and where do you want to build, I think that helps a lot.
That sounds very smart. Vincent, how about you? How do you go about working out who the winners and losers will be?
It's a very good and very difficult question. It's true that, as I was saying, as the technology is emerging, and when we are saying it's emerging, you just need to have a look on what is happening on the market. I would say last week, Microsoft in their Ignite event, they announced a lot of news and services for Agentic. So you can see now Microsoft, they have something. In 2 weeks, in reInvent with AWS, they are going to announce a lot. So I would say many changes. So who will be the winner? We have no clue. So now I would say betting on one solution is very difficult, to be very, very honest. So what does it mean? So as you were mentioning, when you don't know, at some point, I would say you have to be quite careful. And when you also try to understand what is behind this platform, I saw a very nice illustration for that 2 weeks ago in the Gartner event. They were explaining now, 2 decades ago, we are talking about ERP, and we are saying, okay, now when you want to buy an ERP, definitely it's like a wedding. So because you are going to link your accounting with this software provider, so you are creating a deep connection. With the AI, now with all the agentic, this platform is going to orchestrate your core businesses. So it is even more stronger. So it's not a wedding, it's a wedding plus the family plus the apartment. So I would say, meaning that it's a deep connection and it's not a small decision. And so that's why we have to be quite careful. And the way, when we don't know what we are currently doing, exactly what you are mentioning, we need to learn. Because before, I would say, going straight forward, we need to experiment. So we have many experimentation across many entities. So they have started their local exploration with their local businesses. So it's a good way to learn. And learning by doing, I think that in this uncertain period, we have, I would say, I think the best way to move forward. And then we can start, I would say, extending our knowledge and then start buying or making, depending on if it's a strategic decision, if it's available or not. So it's really step by step, because today we don't know what will be the future. And what we know is that in 2 years, it will be a completely different landscape. So we have to stay super agile, super flexible. We stick to the standards, so meaning that in terms of protocol, we have to stick with what has been defined. So agent to agent, MCP, all of that, leveraging all our APIs, really to stay as close as the standard to be able to pivot and to have all the reversibility because we don't know what will be the future. So it's a big bet. So that's why we are quite cautious and we really move forward with our internal capacity today.
Not making the job sound any easier. Ed, to you, a slightly different question. I mean, given this certainty, it's been very well articulated, and it is, the world's moving fast, it's very nascent. You're building tech that fronts on to the customers. Are the customers ready for this? Have you faced any sort of adverse reaction? I mean, do they know they're using the agents in your solution? And if they do, what do they think about it?
Yeah, I mean, as with any new technology, there's mass hysteria to begin with. They're coming for our jobs. Maybe they're coming for our spouses. I don't know what else AI might be coming for, but it's coming for us. By and large, we haven't seen that with the adoption of our customers with the technology. So we give people the opportunity, as we are kind of required to opt out of using AI to submit information about their claim or to engage with us. But actually only 0.3% of customers take that opportunity. So 99.7% say, that's fine, let's move ahead. 90% of them, the same as for our human agents, are very happy with the outcome of their conversation or their transaction with us. Some of them are so smart that when they leave us public reviews on Trustpilot, they'll reference AI and our adoption of that, whether they're correct or incorrect. It's nice to see that they're really switched on. And so in general, we see maybe the last thing which really struck me is we were listening to a voice AI call where we have to say up front a large disclaimer to say you're about to speak to an agent. I hope that's okay. Obviously, you can dial off if you don't want to speak. This individual on the other side, the customer, was just so polite with the AI agent, which really surprised me. We expect, this venom, this frustration, but the customer was speaking very slowly. The agent was speaking very quickly and in French, so I couldn't pick it up, but it was, for all our French-speaking colleagues, very clear. And so I think customers are ultimately adopting the technology in a way that really helps us lean into it and to do much, much more. And it's exciting now really to see that so long as what we build is competent, so long as that it does the job that you want it to do, that you don't go in rings and tire the customer out and make them lose all sense of empathy for you, then they are really, really willing to engage and to take part in this massive experiment that we're undertaking. So it's very exciting, I think, yeah.
Wow, those good stats. Tell us what keeps you awake at night. I mean, quite a lot, I should think.
I actually think so far, given that this is we're a tech crowd here, I think tech doesn't concern me that much. I think the pace that it is evolving, it will solve it will be able to provide a lot of solutions in the future. For me, the transformation is worrying me even more. I mean, and two aspects there. Yes, business excitement is very high, but our experience is the moment you ask an underwriter to actually develop those agents and can encourage all of you to start really trying it out. Getting to 60-70% quality is easy, but then it's extremely hard work to get up to 90-95%. And that's where even the business sometimes loses patience. Because if you go down to the details, you need a large set of question-answer pairs to really train the technology. And that's where the new shiny object suddenly isn't as shiny anymore, because it is a ton of work to really make it work to the degree of kind of accuracy that we need. And we're seeing that in our pilots, that business is also realizing, oh yeah, and now I have to do it because I can't throw it over to IT over the fence to say, why don't you fix it for me? You actually do need the business input. And our experience so far is it takes 6 to 9 months to really get to a good point. And the second piece is not the people building it, but using it. I just read a recent study saying, hey, human in the loop is a great concept. And I think probably all providers in the room say, hey, governance, well, you have to have the human in the loop. It's your problem. But I think there are more and more studies saying, even though you say you need to check, people just don't. Right? But what is the risk that goes along with that? I mean, because if you do a great automation and then you still ask the human, hey, but you have to check everything that the technology did for you, it's not going to work. And what I found more striking is that in that study, it was that, hey, the more highly you score yourself in I understand the technology, the more likely you are to blindly trust the outputs. And I think all of us who have worked more with that technology know you shouldn't, right? And I think how can we manage that cultural transformation to have the human in the loop, but to take that role really seriously? And I think I don't have a good answer to that one yet.
I mean, I think that's just the first. I mean, the natural protection, the natural default for everybody who is fearful of AI is you need a human in the loop. then you get into this really difficult cycle, which is the better the AI is, the more you trust it, the less you check it, and you get into nothing. Vince, the same to you. What keeps you awake at night?
On this agentic transformation, today, that's the management of all the agents. Because now, I would say, for traditional IT, it's binary, so it's quite easy. You can say, does it work? Is it okay or not? It's quite easy. Now, with the agent, it's non-deterministic, so meaning that when you ask a question, you will get an answer. If you ask again the same question, you could get not exactly the same answer, so you have to evaluate an agent. So you could say, okay, quite easy. But now, when you have many agents, I would say when it is auto-structured and auto-organized, how to evaluate end-to-end the answer. For me, it's something, and I don't know how to make it. So that's why today, or not all the rest, but I have a clear idea what kind of, in terms of platform, how to orchestrate, how to build agent. On that, now we have more or less an idea. We have to make it at scale. Of course, that's a big challenge for engineers. But then it's how to manage all those agents and to evaluate. And today, I haven't met anyone with a good answer on that. So for me, it will be my big challenge for the coming years. So it is not solved yet. It's part of my nightmares.
We need a chief evaluation officer somewhere out there.
And really, I like in the new profile, we saw agent managers. And for me, it's a new role. And we have to define what is it in detail and what will be the key activities, how to make it happen. So it's something which is pretty new, and we have to work on it.
Ed, are you sleeping all right?
Perfectly, thanks. No, it's really for me an amalgamation of what they both said. I think with all the opportunity with the technology, we then ask the question, what do we do with our biological agents? How do we make sure that the technology isn't just blindly, let's say, led, by the rest of the team? We can all imagine creating dashboards which say green, 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 all our SLAs are perfect, it's doing a wonderful job, checksums all work out. And yet fundamentally, it's not carrying the voice of the brand that we want it to. It's coming up with some really odd outcomes, sometimes right, sometimes left. And it's that level of getting under the skin of it. And that's where I think training our teams to be far more creative, far less, let's say, pliant with what is out there, and far more willing to challenge the way the AI works in such a way that we can actually have a much more robust check and a much more robust way of keeping tabs on what the technology does. I think for 95% it's perfect, and we can and do, as you say, blindly follow it. But there is a sense, a nagging sense when I go to bed at night, that this bit is missing, and we just need to think about how we train our teams to be far more willing to challenge and far more able to challenge what it's doing.
Thomas, we've just got time to tell me about your personal use case that you shared with me on the phone, which I think is just fascinating.
Yeah, I think that got our discussion started. It was my first real use case that got me convinced that this is something real. Is if you have been an exec at a company for many years, or also if you grew up in a company, you have a ton of assessments done, right? 360-degree feedbacks, and I think that probably holds for most of us. Over your career, you get assessed from all left, right, middle, bottom, whatever. And what I really tried out with Copilot is to actually upload the time series of the last 7 or 8 assessments that had been done with me, and then I'm now chatting with Copilot before difficult discussions. Because, and it's actually scary, because if you have a human coach, it's very easy to kind of duck away, right? You agree on next steps, but you don't do them. I think it's very human. But I also prompted my coach to say, hey, don't get me led away with any excuses. And now, even sometimes when I walk to work, I use the chat function with Copilot, and I just chat about the situations that I'm about to encounter, a difficult discussion with one of my leadership team or so on. And I have to say, it's impressive how well that works. Might also be a reflection of how simple we are as humans, but pattern recognition is spot on.
Well, I think we all walked in as humans. We've all going to walk out as biological agents, which is a bit of a... Thank you very much, the three of you. Fascinating discussion. Vincent, Thomas, Ed, thank you very much.
Well, if you've made it this far, then I'm pretty sure you found that as interesting as I did. The InsTech Podcast comes out every Sunday morning, where we spotlight the latest news, leading voices, and freshest updates across insurance that you need to know about. If you would like to take part in these conversations, head to www.instech.co to find out how you can join our network and be a part of the insurance intelligence for the curious.